We've driven the Porsche Taycan on a number of occasions. We've driven the regular rear-wheel drive Taycan. We've sampled the all-wheel drive Taycan GTS. We've driven the Taycan Turbo. On top of that, we've tried the different body styles. We've tried the regular one, Sports Turismo, the Cross Turismo, and yet somehow we've managed to entirely avoid the Audi e-tron GT, the Porsche's half-sibling. Well, today we're righting that wrong. Perhaps more importantly, we're asking which one we prefer.
Our deep dive into the Audi electric universe begins at the sharp end, with the Audi RS e-tron GT Quattro. The fastest and the most expensive e-tron GT variant, it's the ultimate electric Audi. It's also the most powerful RS-badged Audi ever made.
Now just think about that for a second. Think of all the bonkers Audi RS cars that have come along the last 2 decades. B7 RS4 with a 4.2 litre V8, 420 horsepower. The C6 RS6 with its insane 5 litre twin turbo V10, 579 horsepower. The current generation RS6 with the twin turbo V8, the C8, 600 horsepower. This, 646 horsepower. 646 horsepower! That's nuts! But not without controversy.
The RS e-tron GT has 2 electric motors, one on the front and one on the rear. The front motor produces 284 horsepower, the rear 456. The overall combined peak power is 598 horsepower, not forgetting a wild 830 newton meters of torque. Keen mathematicians will realise there's a deficit there of 48 horsepower, and that's because the headline-grabbing most powerful RS car ever title is only available off the line in boost mode.
But do I care? Should you care? Well, I'm going to vote no for 3 reasons. Number 1, when you've got it in boost mode and you launch it, it's absolutely ridiculous. The weather today is disgusting. It is absolutely filthy. It's been raining now quite hard for several hours. And if I just bring myself to a stop, there's nothing behind me. Left foot on the brake, right foot on the accelerator. Oh, nah. No. Nah, that's not allowed. Nah. Absolutely not. That's stupid. Number 2, when you're not in boost mode, 598 horsepower is still a lot of horsepower. Let's not forget that. And number 3, yes, the RS6 is more powerful most of the time, but this just feels faster, particularly coming out of corners or what would be in-gear acceleration for the RS6. So I'm doing 40 miles an hour right now. There we go, 40 miles an hour. And if I put my foot down, that's so silly. That's just, yeah. What?
The RS e-tron GT is all-wheel drive, as you'd expect from a big power Audi. Like the Porsche, there's a single-speed transmission at the front and a 2-speed transmission at the rear. 3-chamber air springs are standard, as is all-wheel steering and a locking rear differential. The brakes, meanwhile, are steel as standard, coated in tungsten carbide to reduce brake dust and corrosion, and measure 410mm up front. If you're really feeling flush though, you can opt for the carbon ceramics we have here, measuring 420mm up front and yours for a cool £5,100. On the Porsche, a Taycan GTS for example, they'll set you back £6,321.
The brakes are really interesting actually, because most of the time you're not using them. It's the electric motors doing the work, recouping energy and recharging the batteries. They're doing all the work up to 0.3 G, and from there the discs get involved. And that transition, when you put your foot on the brakes, put your foot on the brakes a bit harder, that transition is really, really smooth. You don't notice it, and actually the feel from the brake pedal, when it is just the electric motors, it's actually pretty good. Because in most EVs you get and uncertainty. The pressure that you're putting on the brake pedal doesn't necessarily match up with the braking your brain expects, so it doesn't feel all that natural. Whereas in this, it all just kind of works.
The interior, those paddles included, feels very normal Audi, and that's good news. There's a digital instrument display and a central touchscreen, but where the Porsche has another display, the Audi simply has buttons. There's even a button to turn the screen off. It's refreshingly simple, delightfully conventional and unfuturistic.
There are other bits about the interior that I really like too, aside from its relative simplicity. Like this Alcantara wheel is it's just delightful. You get a heated leather wheel as standard. This is a no-cost option, and I am a sucker for a heated steering wheel. I tell you, if there's a heated steering wheel in a car, I'm like, yeah, that's the car for me. But this is really nice. I think for the first time ever in my life, I was going to get one. Let's go for this. The seats are really decent too, which is a good thing, because you are never more than a poke of the throttle away from this thing being an absolute monster.
Speed aside, and it's difficult to put to one side, you can really get this shifting. On a normal drive, those air springs do such a good job of insulating you from the world, but also maintaining wheel control, keeping body movements in check over big jumps. And when you pick up the pace, move the car from comfort to dynamic, you've still got comfort, but you've got less movement, less roll. It feels more tied down. The steering is nicely weighted as well. In fact, what it does hide is the car's weight, which is significant.
That's the one thing I haven't mentioned yet, because it weighs 2,323 kilograms, which is 28 kilograms more than the Porsche, but in the grand scheme of things, not that much when it weighs 2.3 tons. But for the most part, it hides its weight really well. Part of that, I think, is the steering, part of that is the suspension, but another big part of that, I think, is the all-wheel drive system. Because particularly when you're coming through a fast corner, it just feels like it's rotating around you, and not in a kind of uncomfortable way, as you can feel with some all-wheel steering systems. It just feels like, when you turn into a corner, almost like you're losing the rear end. It doesn't feel like that. It just makes it feel way more agile than a car of this weight has any right to feel.
So then, which would you go for? The Audi or the Porsche?
In some ways, it's a bit of an unfair question, because there are only two versions of this. There's the e-tron and the RS. With the Porsche, there's the Taycan, there's a Taycan 4, there's a Taycan 4S, there's a Taycan GTS, a Taycan Turbo, and a Taycan Turbo S. And there's also the regular Taycan, the Sport Turismo and the Cross Turismo. That's a funny thing. Why hasn't Audi made the estate version of this? Porsche has done one, got the Sport Turismo and the Cross Turismo, but Audi, the king of the Uber estate car, hasn't made an estate version of the e-tron. Why? Why? Do it, Audi. I think it would be the Audi, because I prefer the look of it, and I think, for me, the interior's just a bit better. But to be honest, I think I'd be happy. I think I'd be over the moon with either. Let's be honest. I think I would. They're both mega cars. All things considered, it's just comforting to know that as we head towards this all-electric future, there are still companies out there who know how to make a car that is bloody good fun. Stupid! Woo-hoo-hoo!